So today we are having a discussion on ZIM, African economies, and Zimbabwe in focus. It's the second discussion that we are having, and we have Taku to speak about it. Hi, Taku. Introduce yourself, and then we get into some of the issues.
Thank you very much, Mukame. This is Taku here. I'm connecting from Cape Town, South Africa, and I'm honored to be invited to discuss about issues, factors, and elements affecting our country, Zimbabwe, our region, SADC, and Africa at large.
Okay, thank you. And the main aim of this discussion is to get a sense of what's first happening with the economy, just the economy itself, and what solutions there would be that Zimbabwe could have. And this is to help both Zimbabwe and the SADC region and Africa at large, because with one Africa, especially the Africa Continental Free Trade Area coming into place, every African country the economy needs to be working in a very good way so that they can help improve Africa at large. So, Taku, so if you could quickly mention what exactly is the economic situation of Zim as of today, 30th of October 2020? What's your understanding of what the economy is like?
Well, I think based on first-hand experience, though the visit may be temporary or hearsay from close people, family, and news articles from credible Zimbabwean sources, I think it is rather stagnant, and there hasn't been much changes in terms of where we have been and where we are going as a people. For example, issues of currency discrepancies are still there. Right now, the difference is that there is a Zim dollar or a bond, not RTGS, which is, I think, now a form of currency. I'm not sure if it is tradable outside the country. However, recently on the 17th of October, the minister projected the economy to grow by 7.4% in the coming year, which means that it seems as if there is indeed growth, but it is just taking time to reflect on the ground. Perhaps because they had to deal with a new government. They first have to rectify and sort out some fundamentals of economics in order to get things right. It wouldn't have been done overnight or achieved overnight. We had issues of, when you have multiple currencies in one basket, we had traders determining their own rate on the streets, and we also had the former one it was different, like explained in the previous discussion. Then people could burn money to get more or to get less, which made no sense. So right now they managed to get that out of the way. So now there is one currency, not one currency, but one exchange rate, which means that the consumer is not abused by business people. You do not wake up today, a bottle of Coke is two bond, or maybe let us just say $1, and then tomorrow it's a different amount, times 3, times 4. Such confusion appears to be that problem has been rectified. So to answer the question, I think it is not where it should be, but I think it is. I think we are headed in the right direction. Of course, given the situation, the elements that the economy is operating under, that is COVID, that is also sanctions, which are still in place.
Okay, I actually agree that if at least that's a step, like trying to have one exchange rate, that's actually something. If it because it was something that was affecting like the ordinary person quite a lot. If that's under control, that's like a step towards the right direction, if you ask me. But tell me, how many currencies are operating? Is the US dollar still? So it's the US dollar, the Zim dollar, and the bond note, or what's the currency situation like?
It is not official that the economy is dollarizing. It may still dollarize naturally, but the currency that is being used is the Zim dollar, but the American US dollar still work. So whatever currency that you have, you won't be arrested for it. That's different from other countries. You can have whatever money that you have, but of course you can change that money easily also. It depends on what you want to use it for. The issue or the problem that we might face is that the hospitals may not accept the local currencies, or maybe the schools may not accept it, but the shops do, and the government should obviously do more to ensure that the local currency is accepted in all public offices,
Yeah.
so that the consumer or the citizen do not suffer having been paid in one currency, but being told you cannot spend it in that particular currency.
Okay. So would it be right to say then that someone living in Zim might often need to get different currencies depending on where they are going to be operating from? So that just having the Zim dollar is not enough. You might also need to have the US dollar so that just in case the school doesn't accept it or the hospital, then you have an alternative currency to give.
Yes, certainly. I think it's always safe to have American US dollars until, of course, the government act act on such people that derailing such efforts to ensure that the citizen, the consumer, is well served.
Okay. I think that might help because that means, because that puts an extra burden to a consumer, someone to actually always make sure they have maybe multiple currencies just in case one is not accepted. But tell me, and what's like last time we mentioned a bit about use of hard currency versus mobile money. So does a consumer who has mobile money, is it what's the situation like? Because mobile money, I would think, is quite a big, yes, from the last discussion, it sounds to be to have quite a big market in Zimbabwe. So what's the situation like using mobile money?
At the moment, I'm not 100%. I'm not 100% certain since I'm not in the country. However, the issue or the problem that we encountered with mobile money is that you get one party that has the monopoly on the whole in the whole industry. And I think that is where competition law comes in. And so when you have one party that is dominating, they could literally increase the prices or act in any manner that they like. And it is the mobile money that was said also to be causing inflation because they would have their own rates. Instead of operating as a platform, it appears as if it was creating its own currency. Mobile money became a currency in itself, in a bucket full of currency. Now you have the US dollar, now you have mobile money, now you have bond or Zim dollar if I'm not repeating. So now the problem is that with such an arrangement, you have a private party, a business person appearing to be doing the work of the Reserve Bank.
Yeah.
Because you are determining your own currency. And the issue also with that, I think the Reserve Bank acted on them on these platforms by limiting the amounts that the agents can transfer. You see, so that they could also fight against money laundering and things of that nature, because it was largely left unregulated.
Okay.
But I think that has now been sorted out, but there's still confusion. For example, if you have such a state where there's different currencies, if you are putting your money in a mobile wallet and it's not really specific as to which currency it is, you deposit American US dollars and you can't get them out. You can only get bonds. I think that is also one element that, that maintains the kingship of cash. But I think it is quite. I think mobile money is the best, and it really worked well for Zimbabwe. But I just feel like we needed more competition. Yes, there are other partners. It's not only one party, but it's one party that dominated. So I think if we had competition, it would serve us well, and not only have one party dominating.
Is it at the competition? Is there now like a bit of competition, even if they're not on the same level?
Well, it's competition in terms of the large percentage is in one company of the citizens. Yes. So if we have one country and 5 banks, but 95% of the citizens use one bank.
Yeah.
Of what use as other banks? How does it serve the economy? How does it serve the people?
Yeah.
If that one bank knows that we have 90%, we can increase charges. We can do this. It becomes a problem. I think competition is healthy for the economy.
Yeah, but I think also consumers themselves need to like look what works for them. Like even they're like giving all business to one of the companies rather than like these others. That in itself, I think the consumers can influence that a bit, like the free market of demand and supply. The market forces can help. If one person increases the charges, then they can move to the next one. But I understand what you mean, because like for instance in Kenya, there are different mobile money transfer options, but there's one which almost like possibly a big percentage of the country is using. And the thing with them is that because if there's maybe like 90% of people using it, it makes it easier for you to transfer money amongst 90% of the population. Because if you cross transfer to another service provider, it might be more expensive. So I think it's just that it's more convenient if more people are using this mobile money platform for you to also sign up to it, because you can pay using it in the supermarket and such places. But I think that's quite an interesting discussion about mobile money.
Perhaps the government should have a stake in that.
In Kenya, I think the government does. In the big,
which is better because the government can still control. The purpose of the government is to serve the people, but the purpose of a private party, a private citizenship, a private citizen is to acquire profit. So I think there need to be a balance. So if it's like that in Kenya, I'm certain that I'm also sure that it is working well.
Yeah,
if it's like that.
I don't have much information on how well if the government being a shareholder. I mean, it definitely gives a bit of comfort to know that at least there's someone who is not entirely after money, profit making. There's someone who is at least trying to look out for the interests of the public, other than if it was just businessmen who are maximizing their profit. There's a bit of comfort there, but whether it's efficient or not, or whether it's actually being realized, I don't think so. Yeah. So, and tell me, what's the whole hyperinflation situation like? What exactly when you hear someone speaking about Zim, they say like hyperinflation set in for this period of time. This is what set the country, like on this situation that it is in. What really does that mean, and what does it look like?
Well, if I'm correct, hyperinflation is a term that is used to describe out of control pricing. I think excessive increases in pricing. And I think that has been sorted out. I don't think that we have issues we have problems with hyperinflation. That is past. And based on my understanding, at the present moment, there is an inflation just like any other country.
Yeah.
Inflation is how you pace the rising of prices, goods and services, right?
Yeah.
But the problem was caused by the currency confusion. So it was not really. It was rather the exchange rate that was causing such issues. But it appears as if the currency problem or issue has been leveled out for now. So there isn't that problem. So when we speak of hyperinflation in Zimbabwe, I think it's a historical phenomenon that probably ended after the government of national unity 2013. Of course, we had such issues 2017-18, but it rather brought back memories only. It was the signs of the past. But I wouldn't really think we have an issue of hyperinflation. The potential is there nevertheless. But I think it's something that we have to reflect back as a historical phenomenon.
Yeah. So tell me, now turning to other things, there are things that economically that used to lead, especially like used to supply to like the GDP, like farming and exports, and mining and tourism, because those still remain in the hands of Zimbabwe to use, especially like farming and mining and tourism, Victoria Falls and other sites to see. What's like the situation like in those? Why, if there is an issue, is that happening? Because that remains to be something that can be used to even help with a lot of the currency issues and people within the country.
I think some of these issues, you see, for currency to work, we deal with confidence that the citizens have on the currency itself. So when we introduce a domestic currency, you have people from perhaps from some opposition, some genuine Zimbabwean concerns, because it's not the opposition that experienced the pain of living through hyperinflation. So everyone is skeptical, of course. But you see, for something to work, we need confidence in a currency. But for there to be confidence in a currency, in our situation, I am of the opinion that Zimbabwe, the political situation has to be leveled out. It has to be sorted out. And I think we are on a way, on a journey towards rectifying that issue. So it may be undesirable for some, but if we are headed for a one-party state, perhaps a Chinese model, even modified, of course, to our own conditions. I don't think the one-party state is a Chinese model. Actually, I think that is also an African model, but I think it's a model that needs working. But I was thinking that it would be a solution, because if we are observing what is happening, and I think really it's really smart politics at play, and it seems like the opposition has been neutralized, and in place of the opposition now we have a supporting party. It appears to be supportive. I think only time can tell what benefit they can bring towards solving the issue. Of course, there's a need for credibility. So I think we are on the right direction in that department, because I think each and everyone should be on board. Our efforts should be focused on fixing our country. But this of course is not to ignore the genuine concern of the opposition or of other people.
Okay.
But we need proof that such concerns are genuine, because I think there's no concern more important than a concern of developing our country.
Yeah. I actually agree. Like you see, Kenya, in the last election, in the 2017 election, there was quite a dispute on the election, on the presidential election, went to the Supreme Court, and there was a rerun of the election, and it looked like the country was just going to break, But I think what brought peace is when the person who declared president and the other person was contending for the position, what they had to do is unite, like come together and say, you know what, we need to work together. And the minute that happened, it's called the handshake. When they had the handshake between the two of them, it was like the change in the economy and the confidence, and it was drastic. Like it really brought together like the country in a way that I think if everyone doubled down and decided to hold their position, I don't think we would have been in the same place. So I think I don't know about like a one party state model, but I think there needs to be more like collaboration in the working. I think so.
Certainly, cooperative leadership. There need to be cooperation.
Yeah.
And the Kenya situation is a great example. We experienced that in 2000 and after the hyperinflation. However, if both parties do not see the need to come together, it obviously becomes a problem. But it's either but politics are at play, obviously, so we might have to wait for the final game to see who wins. Ultimately, history favors the winner.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let us just wait and see what happens. Whoever wins should get the ball rolling so that we can fix the country. I mean, it's been over 20 years now.
Yeah,
and
but
we are tired.
the thing I think with Zim is that there has not been a civil war or like a very something that actually affects the lives of people as like civil unrest or maybe like like tribal wars and such things. I don't think Zim has experienced any of that, has there?
No,
Yeah.
not we haven't in that nature.
Yeah.
But there might have been some events. Yes, I think events is the right word to use.
Yeah.
But that is not on a national scale. So the positive side about not having a civil war is that our infrastructure is still intact. The hospitals are still there. The roads are still there, though maybe not to a desirable standard, but they are still there. If you compare Zimbabwe with other countries, you will find out that it is still somewhere there. If we look at the statistics, the GDP, we see it's maybe at the bottom. We can obviously be higher. Right now, we're looking at Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt, and here it's around after maybe under 20, just below Cameroon, and Uganda, Zambia at the bottom, and Senegal. Now, we are looking at all these countries. It's the only country that is under sanctions. Maybe not only country. But how can a country that is under sanctions still be on two legs? That just shows you the strength and the power of the infrastructure that is there. And it also reflects on the potential of the country. Obviously, we cannot only blame the sanctions. We also have to put our minds together and solve whatever problems and issues we have, first of all, with ourselves. I mean, if we are all sitting on one table and we tell whoever that is putting sanctions on us that, look, we are getting along, remove your sanctions. Who looks stupid? It is the sanction giver, because it just look like it just appears as if it's a hateful exercise. But you see, the whole sanction is a national issue and not a political issue. Once we make the issue of sanctions in Zimbabwe a political issue, that it is this party that is sanctions, or it is this party that called for sanctions, then normal people now, citizens, cannot come together and help fight this beast called sanctions. But of course, the removal of sanctions is not going to result in any changes.
Okay, you don't think so? Okay.
What will happen is, what will ultimately change our nature, our state as a country. Obviously, sanctions should be removed, but why should we wait for sanctions to be removed before we practice good governance? Why should we wait for sanctions to be removed before we tackle illicit thing when the funds are going out of the country? Why should we wait for sanctions until we start production, we start companies, we start utilizing our land? Yes, we have been doing that, but we still have challenges that we also have to focus upon. And this has nothing to do with any party or anybody. I think it's a national issue that we have to tackle. Sanction alone is not a solution. There is nothing. If we look at the progress of other African countries, they are not under sanctions, but they are probably facing the same or even worse issues compared to us.
That's true. When you put it that way, it makes sense, because you see, like, especially, let's say, an industry like your mining, you can create jobs. There could be jobs creation, and even something like farming. And I mean, those industries can actually be, built up despite the sanctions. But we will come next to speak about like how the Africa Union and SADC and other, like other African communities can help, even if the export is not going to the international market. Nothing stops other African countries from buying from Zim. But I think the point with Zim is that I think a civil war really breaks down a country, and I think that's a really big blessing that Zim has. Like, the country itself is intact, the people are intact. It's only the economy that needs some strengthening. But as a country itself, you really can't compare to a country that has gone through a civil war, a genocide, or such situations, which makes the country, the recovery of the country. You can recover economically, but there's still very so much that happens to the country itself that takes a longer time to build up. But so, speaking of like Africa, like other African countries like SADC, what do you think could help Zim and build up, especially on the economic side? What can other African countries do?
My sister, it's a very difficult proposal to ask your struggling uncle to pay your children's school fees.
Yeah, but he should. Maybe.
Out of morality, yes, but the standard of help will not be to the same level as you would if he was well off. Now, my point is that, first of all, there is individualism from a state perspective in Africa. South Africa, the so-called superpower in the region, ultimately is focused on itself. They're also benefiting from what we call, it could be capital flight. I mean, all the skilled workers would be in the country. All the companies and investment could potentially come to this side. From economics perspective, I think the solution comes from the country itself. But if you're talking about busting sanctions, it may mean using Mozambique as a front. You can always, of course, this is a strategy. Previously, the Rhodesian country would brand their products as if they were from other countries, either South Africa or Mozambique, and then they sell it. That way, the when you are dealing with the product from Mozambique, there are no sanctions. So perhaps such an arrangement whereby they are able to sell their produce or the mineral resources through other countries. But the problem with our diamonds is that they are uniquely ours. It's easy to see. So they could declare them blood diamonds. The value is less. Now you have to sell them on the black market for whalers.
Yeah.
So currently, I must admit that the assistance from other African countries are coming from housing the citizens. You see, from housing these citizens, they also get. It's not like it's a burden, entirely a burden, but they also get access to the skills of this of the Zimbabwean workers.
Yeah.
You know, and they also contribute to the economies in their large numbers through tax and other means. So I'm not sure. I'm not certain what they can do to help Zimbabwe economically, but it would probably be allowing favorable conditions. But we are, or the conditions are already there. So I feel like ultimately it must come down to them, to political diplomatic solidarity, which is already there even at SADC. SADC is already 25 October. They recognize the issue of sanctions as anti-sanctions day. So I think they are trying, but ultimately the problem is not from them, so they can't do anything.
Yeah.
They have the West and the British should remove the sanctions so that we can see that if it is incompetence, then it will be naked. There won't be an excuse that we are not where we should be, where we want to be because of sanctions, because they won't be there.
Yeah.
So we're not saying remove them because of whatever political reason. We're saying remove the excuse so that we can look at our problems properly.
That's true. Even if I think to some extent imposing sanctions on a country it actually does affect, because that means like even accessing to like maybe exports that Zim would make maybe to the EU, that's affected, and maybe like the banks in Zim are affected. There's a way that they contribute, even if it's not just an excuse. There's a way that sanctions can really slow down an economy, and I think it's just somehow like what you're suggesting. The economy sustaining itself might be the best way to go about, because you can never avoid what another country decides to do with you. If they want to impose sanctions, there's really nothing you can do with that except like lobby diplomatically for the sanctions to be lifted. But I think if a country is able to sustain itself despite the sanctions, then that would be a good thing. And also, I think the other point you said about like the Zim diamonds being unique, and that's again the thing, like without a civil war where your diamonds are labeled blood diamonds and such things, you still like them can compete so globally with the diamonds and the mining that's from Zim, because it's clean mining, and it's clean farming, it's clean, like that's the position that is very admirable with Zim. And when Zim gets momentum, it will go way past even other countries that don't have sanctions, but or that cannot, because they cannot export their diamonds because they're blood diamonds and such kind of things. But tell me, China hasn't imposed sanctions on Zim, and there's a low-cost policy. How is that working?
The Chinese cannot impose sanctions on us. I suppose they are an ally or a friend, but of course we have to be careful there, because the only friend that you can ultimately have, or that we can ultimately have as African people, is that one that we see when we look in the mirror, first of all. And of course, there was once a wise man that says, if you don't see anything that is friendly in the mirror, then you don't have any friends. Now, the Look East policy was obviously in response to the West sanctions. I think it's early 2000. I'm not certain of the exact date. Right now, the Chinese give you what you negotiate for. Ultimately, it's about negotiating. So, when we say Look East policy, I think it's actually a look inward policy. I'm talking about the global south now. It's the south to south cooperation in various areas. So, first of all, you asked sanctions, China don't have sanctions. I think in 2009, China vetoed a motion to have UN sanctions on Zimbabwe, which would have been more deadlier. So for that, we are grateful. But of course, we have to assess the impact. It has been 20 years now. What has China achieved in Zimbabwe? I think that is ultimately the good question. Perhaps the airports, they are there, which is impressive. Airport upgrades, and an airport is a very important institution for a country. Roads, they built. We also have a military. I think it's a military academy, high quality stuff. So there is cooperation in many sectors and industries. Right now, they are busy building the Parliament of Zimbabwe. And it has taken shape. It is quite massive. I'm not certain why we should have other people build our parliaments, our AU headquarters. But that's a story for another day. You see. So the Look East policy hasn't really been life changing. It hasn't been too impactful. China should have used Zimbabwe as an example of what it can do. However, unfortunately, it is not the only solution. After all, we are an independent country, and you cannot expect having one relation, having relations with China or any Eastern country to ultimately solve all your problems. I think it is how you channel. What is China good at? What skill can we borrow from them? Did we have any skills transfers from them? Did we get any technology from them? I think that is areas that requires research rather than, because sometimes the eye may not be able to really see what the Chinese has achieved in that country or helped achieve in agriculture, in many other sectors. But I think China in general and construction industries, they're very excellent. And I think many countries can also confirm that the partnership has been fruitful in that regard. But you see, in terms of job creations, technology transfer, I'm not certain. But that is not the obligation of China. It's the obligation of Zimbabweans.
I like what you said, because for China you get what you negotiate for. I think they are good negotiators. I think for them is, we were having a discussion on China Africa yesterday, and that's what we were saying, especially like on the Belt and Road Initiative. It's that you get what you negotiate for. And thing is that how the negotiations are done, you can't come back and say you are exploiting us by building us a parliament when what we wanted is for you to create jobs or do a technology transfer to them. Because then they will ask, then why didn't you negotiate for that? I mean, I think the negotiations are like very important, and you get what you negotiated for. And which I think with China and the negotiations with China, I don't think Zim is the only country that could do better, especially on asking for technology transfer, like and such things like creating employment domestically and maybe loan renegotiations. I think most African countries need to do that. But also with China, I think with the sanctions, and China there is no sanctions on Zim, it's there's access to the Chinese market. Like Zim can, if it's farming products or any other things that were being produced which can't go to the US market. I mean, the China market is huge. So I think there's opportunity even the Asian countries, like there is room to export to these other countries and the products, so that if the Zim economy were to stabilize, I think the marketing part can be figured out. So I think it helps not to have everyone in the world imposing sanctions on you. I think it helps, even if you're not able to like tell what's the concrete outcome of China being in Zim for this long. So, if you could make any other comments you would on green economy and any other solutions that you'd suggest, and then we wrap this up.
Okay, thank you. So to wrap up, I think the Chinese market is an option. We send tobacco there. We send many other products there. We also send to the countries that sanctions, even America, even the EU. So it's not that we can't really trade with them. Even with China, it's not that we can't negotiate better deals with them. But it's all about leverage sometimes. They know that you can't get it from there. So now that's already a disadvantage. So it's a disadvantage on many fronts. So I think it's a case of us just waiting a little bit longer to see what tomorrow has for us. I'm also certain that things will get better. And I think once Zimbabwe gets sorted out, we will then deal next with I think our region, that is the SADC for now, will obviously improve and be in a better place. And it's not only Zimbabwe; it could also bring about inspiration for other countries that are struggling in other regions. And I also feel we should look at our brothers in the Latin America, South America. That is also a market. So we should not restrict our markets or our perspectives to the Chinese or the East and the West. We should also look at each and every partner. There are many markets to exploit, markets to get benefits from. So it is my hope that things will obviously get better, but we cannot wait for things to get better. We just have to start today to ensure that things do get better as soon as possible. Thank you.
That's the Zim people attitude. You guys are just amazing. Like you just don't ever like there's something when you listen to someone from Zim or just look at them in their eyes, they have this determination, and it's almost like there's no putting you down. It's like which I also had someone interview, I think a BBC reporter say there's just something about Zim people. Like it's just there's a spirit in there that is always fighting. So thanks, Taku, and it was great having this discussion. We will be having the next discussion on Egypt, the Egypt economy, and who knows? I mean, to listen to what's going on in Egypt and what they are doing, and like listen in and borrow tips that can apply to any other African country. But yeah, it was great chatting with you.
Thank you very much. Certainly, I'll be connected with the Egypt discussion, given, of course, the political tensions that are happening there.
Yeah.
I'll see you in the next session.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the discussion. If you like the discussions, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our videos, and follow us on social media on Facebook, Africa iShare platform, on Twitter, Africa iShare. Thank you.